On my birthday, my kids spent my $2,100 pension. My revenge refunds left their vacation ruined. A week before Christmas, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard voices coming from the living room. It was Amanda, my daughter, on the phone. Her tone was casual, carefree, as if she were planning a vacation or picking out a new dress. I approached slowly without making a sound because something in her voice made me stop. Then I heard her say clearly, "Just leave all 8 grandkids with her to watch, and that's it. She doesn't have anything else to do anyway. We're going to the hotel and we'll have a peaceful time." I felt as if the floor had opened up beneath my feet. I stood frozen behind the door, the mug still in my hand, trying to process what I had just heard. It wasn't the first time I had heard something like this, but never so direct, so cold, so completely without any consideration for me. Amanda continued talking, even laughing. "Yeah, Martin already booked the hotel at the coast. We're going to take advantage of these days without the kids. Robert and Lucy agree, too. They're going to that resort they've always wanted to visit. Mom has experience. She knows how to handle all 8 of them. Plus, she already bought the gifts and paid for dinner. We just have to show up on the 25th, eat, open presents, and that's it. Perfect. No, perfect." That word hung in the air like poison. Perfect for them. Perfect for everyone but me. I carefully placed the mug on the table, trying not to make a sound. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so deep I didn't even know I had it. A rage that had been dormant for years, waiting for the exact moment to wake up. I walked out of the kitchen silently, crossed the hall, and went up the stairs to my bedroom. Each step felt heavier than the last. I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed, staring into space. There I was, Celia Johnson, 67 years old, widowed for 12 years, a mother of 2 children who had just reduced me to a free employee, a grandmother of 8 grandchildren I love with all my heart, but who apparently only served as an excuse for their parents to escape their responsibilities. Amanda had 3 kids, Robert had 5, 8 beautiful creatures I adored, but their own parents were willing to abandon them with me as if I were a 24-hour childcare service. I looked around my room. The walls were filled with family photos, birthdays, graduations, first communions. In all those photos, I was there, always present, always smiling, always holding someone, serving something, organizing everything from the background. But in none of those photos was I the center. In none of those celebrations had anyone thought of me first. Got up and walked to the closet. There were the gift bags I had bought over the last 3 months, 8 carefully chosen gifts for each of my grandchildren. Toys, clothes, books. I had spent more than $1,200 in total, money that came from my pension, which wasn't much, but I had always managed it carefully so I could give them something special for Christmas. There was also the grocery receipt where I had prepaid for the entire dinner for 18 people. Turkey, sides, desserts, drinks, another $900 that came out of my pocket without anyone asking me to. I just did it because I thought that's how you showed love. I thought that if I gave enough, eventually I would get something back. How naive I had been. I sat down on the bed again and closed my eyes. Memories began to arrive like waves. Last year's Christmas, I had cooked for 2 whole days. Amanda and Martin arrived late, ate quickly, and left early because they had a party with friends. Robert and Lucy did the same. The children stayed with me until midnight. I bathed them, put them to sleep on the air mattresses I had set up in the living room, and stayed up watching over them while their parents were toasting somewhere else. Christmas, 2 years ago, same thing. I prepared everything, they consumed it, and at the end of the day, I was left alone cleaning up dirty dishes and broken toys while listening to the echo of silence in my house. And so year after year, birthdays, graduation parties, celebrations of all kinds, I was always the one in the kitchen, the one cleaning, the one watching the children while everyone else had fun. But my birthday, oh my birthday, that day, no one remembered anything. Last year, Amanda called me 3 days later to say she had forgotten. Robert didn't even call. There was no cake, no dinner, there was nothing. Just a text message from Amanda that said, "Sorry, Mom, it slipped my mind. You know how it is with the kids." I opened my eyes and looked at the gift bags again. Something inside me broke at that moment. It wasn't a dramatic break. It wasn't a scream or uncontrolled crying. It was something much deeper. It was the silent fracturing of a woman who finally understood that she had been living for everyone but herself. I stood up and walked to the phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name of Paula Smith, my friend of 30 years. Paula had invited me the week before to spend Christmas with her in a small town near the beach. I had declined the invitation because, of course, I had to be with my family. I dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she answered. Celia, what a surprise. How are you? Paula? I said, and my voice came out firmer than I expected. Is your invitation for Christmas still on? There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then Paula's warm voice replied, Of course it is. What happened? I lied. Or maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe something was finally happening, something important. I just decided that this year I want to do things differently. That sounds perfect. We'll leave on the 23rd in the morning. I was thinking of going to the little coastal town where everything is calm. No pressure, just rest in the ocean. That sounds like exactly what I need. We hung up and I stood there looking at the phone in my hand. Something had changed. I didn't know exactly what, but I could feel it. It was as if after years of carrying an invisible weight, someone had finally given me permission to let it go. I went down to the kitchen again. Amanda was no longer in the living room. She had probably left without even saying goodbye, as she always did. I took out my notebook and started writing a list. It wasn't a shopping list or a to-do list for Christmas dinner. It was a list of things I was going to cancel. I sat in the kitchen with the notebook open in front of me. The pen in my hand seemed to weigh more than usual. Outside, the December sun was beginning to hide behind the buildings, painting everything in shades of orange and gray. Inside of me, something dark was also starting to move. I wrote the first line. Cancel the grocery store order. $900 that would go back into my account. $900 that I had set aside with effort, calculating every penny of my pension to be able to give them a decent dinner. A dinner they weren't even going to appreciate. I wrote the second line. Return the gifts. $1,200 more. Money I had saved for months, denying myself things I needed so I could see my grandchildren's faces light up as they opened their presents. But their parents weren't even going to be there to see that. They were going to be in hotels, at resorts, enjoying themselves while I did all the work. I closed the notebook and leaned back against the chair. The memories started coming without permission, as they always did when I was alone. I remembered Christmas 5 years ago. It was the first Christmas without my husband. He had died in October, and I was still broken inside, trying to pretend everything was okay. Amanda called me 2 weeks before Christmas and said, Mom, you're going to cook like always this year, right? The kids are expecting your turkey. We don't want to disappoint them. I had just lost the love of my life, and my daughter was asking me to cook. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't offer to help. She just reminded me of my obligation. And I did it. I cooked the turkey. I prepared the side dishes. I decorated the house. I put on a nice dress and smiled when everyone arrived. No one mentioned my husband. No one toasted to his memory. It was as if he had never existed. They ate. They opened gifts. They left. I stayed alone that night, sitting on the couch, looking at the food scraps and wondering if anyone would notice if I simply disappeared. I also remembered my 65th birthday. It had been 2 years ago. I didn't expect much. I never did. But that particular day, I had woken up with a little hope. Maybe Amanda would remember. Maybe Robert would show up with the kids. Maybe someone would make me feel like my existence mattered. I waited all day. I made coffee in case someone came. I baked a small cake, feeling ridiculous for doing it for myself. The hours passed. The phone didn't ring. No one knocked on the door. At 8 o'clock at night, I finally got a message from Amanda. Sorry, Mom, the day got away from me. Happy belated birthday. Robert didn't even write. I ate a slice of cake alone in the darkness of my kitchen, wondering when I had become invisible to my own children. But the worst part wasn't the forgotten birthdays or the lonely Christmases. The worst part was all the times I became something useful to them. I remembered when Amanda had her first child. I was excited to be a grandmother. I thought it would be a beautiful experience we would share together. But from the very first day, Amanda turned me into her personal nanny. Mom, come watch the baby. I need to sleep. Mom, stay with him tonight. We have an important dinner. Mom, take him to the doctor. I have work. It was never, Mom, thank you. It was never, Mom, how are you? It was always, Mom, I need you to do this. And I did it. Of course, I did it because I thought that's how it worked. I thought that if I made myself indispensable, if I solved all their problems, eventually they would see me, they would value me, they would love me the way I needed to be loved. But it didn't work that way. The more I gave, the more they asked. The more I did, the more they expected. I became a resource, not a person, a solution, not a mother. Robert wasn't any different. When he and Lucy had their first child, the story repeated itself. Calls at midnight because the baby wouldn't stop crying and they didn't know what to do. Entire weekends watching the kids because they needed time for themselves. They never paid me. They never really thanked me. They just assumed I would always be there available without a life of my own, without needs of my own. And the saddest part is that I allowed that to happen. I trained my children to treat me that way. Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no. Every time I smiled when inside I was breaking. Every time I swallowed my pain so as not to inconvenience anyone. I built this prison. I forged the chains myself. I got up from the chair and walked to the window. Outside, the neighbors' Christmas lights were starting to come on, bright colors trying to cheer up the winter darkness. But inside me, there was only gray. I thought about all the previous Christmases, all the times I had decorated this house alone, all the trees I had put up without help, all the dinners I had prepared while my children arrived late or didn't show up at all. I thought about last year when Amanda asked me to watch her 3 kids for 4 days because she and Martin were going on an anniversary trip. I accepted, of course. The kids got sick during those days, high fever, vomiting. I didn't sleep for 3 nights, caring for them, taking them to the doctor, giving them medicine. When Amanda returned, tanned and rested, the first thing she said to me was, "Mom, the kids look terrible. What did you feed them?" She didn't ask how I was. She didn't thank me for staying up all night. She blamed me and I didn't say anything. I just lowered my head and apologized. I also remembered when Robert borrowed money from me 2 years ago. He needed to pay a debt and assured me he would pay me back in 3 months. It was $2,000. Almost everything I had saved for emergencies. I gave him the money. 3 months passed, 6 passed, a year passed. He never paid me back. And when I finally mustered the courage to ask him, he looked at me as if I were the selfish one. "Mom, I'm in a difficult situation right now. I can't give you that money. I thought you had just given it to me. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me without expecting anything in return." I was speechless because he was right about one thing. I had always given without expecting anything in return. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. It didn't mean it didn't make me feel used. I went back to the table and opened the notebook again. I started writing a different list. It wasn't a list of things I was going to cancel. It was a list of all the times I had been invisible. My 63rd birthday. No one came. Last year's Mother's Day, I received a generic text message. Christmas 3 years ago. I cooked for 15 people. No one stayed to help me clean. The time I was in the hospital with an infection, Amanda said she couldn't visit because she had yoga. When I sold my mother's jewelry to help Robert with his business, he never thanked me. The list grew page after page, years and years of moments when I had been treated as secondary, as someone whose existence only mattered when it was convenient for others. When I finished writing, I looked at the pages filled with black ink and realized something. I had stopped existing for them a long time ago. I had become a function, a service. I was no longer Celia. I was no longer the woman who had dreams, desires, needs. I was just Mom, the problem solver, Grandma, the caretaker, her, the one who is always available. I closed the notebook hard. The sound echoed in the empty kitchen. Something inside me hardened at that moment. It wasn't hate. It wasn't revenge. It was something much simpler and more powerful. It was the decision not to disappear again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house, a silence I knew too well. The same silence that had accompanied me for the last 12 years ever since my husband died and left me alone in this world. But I wasn't really alone, was I? I had 2 children. I had 8 grandchildren. I had a family, or at least that's what I believed. What I had believed for so long. I got up from the bed around 3 o'clock in the morning and went down to the living room. I turned on a small lamp and sat on the couch. In front of me on the wall was the large family portrait we had taken 4 years ago. We were all there. Amanda with Martin and their 3 children, Robert with Lucy and their 5 children, and me in the center smiling. But as I looked at that photo, something hit me with a brutal force. I wasn't really in the center. I was in the back, almost hidden behind everyone, as if the photographer had decided that my presence wasn't important enough to highlight. I went closer to the photo and looked at it more carefully. Amanda was in front, perfectly made up, with a radiant smile. Robert beside her with that confident look he always had. The children, beautiful, full of life. Martin and Lucy posing as if they were in a magazine. And me. I was there in the back, small, blurry, almost invisible. I remembered the day we took that photo. It had been Amanda's idea. "Mom, we need a professional family photo, something we can frame and put in the living room." I had been excited. I thought that finally there would be a memory where we were all together, united. But when we got to the studio, the photographer started arranging everyone. He put Amanda and Robert in front. He arranged the grandchildren around them. He placed Martin and Lucy in strategic positions. And then he looked at me and said, "You stand in the back, Mom. That way you don't block anyone." I obeyed, as I always did. I stood in the back. I didn't block anyone. I let everyone else shine while I stayed in the shadows. Amanda looked at the photos and was thrilled. "You look beautiful, Mom. You were perfect back there. Perfect back there." Those words now burned me like acid. I walked away from the portrait and went to the other side of the living room where there was a small shelf with more photos. Photos of birthdays, graduations, parties. I started looking through them one by one. In the photo of Amanda's graduation, I wasn't there. She had told me there were only tickets for her husband and children. "You understand, Mom. The space is limited." I understood. I always understood. In the photo of Robert's first child's baptism, I was cut in half. Someone had decided that the important part of the photo was the baby and the parents. My face was divided by the edge of the frame. In the Christmas photo from 3 years ago, I was in the kitchen serving food. I wasn't with them at the table. I wasn't toasting. I was working as always. I kept looking photo after photo, and in all of them, it was the same. I was absent, cut off, blurry, or simply in the background doing something useful. I was never the center. I was never the protagonist. I was always the accessory. I sat down on the couch again with an old album in my hands. It was an album from when my children were little. Photos from when Amanda was 5 years old and Robert was 7. Photos of birthdays, beach vacations, afternoons at the park. In all those photos, I was present, smiling, hugging them, kissing them, being their mom. When did I stop being their mom and become their servant? I remembered a specific moment. Amanda was 16. She had come home from school furious because a friend had betrayed her. I was cooking, but I stopped everything to listen to her. I sat with her for 2 hours, drying her tears, giving her advice, making her laugh. In the end, she hugged me and said, "Thanks, Mom. You're the best. You're always there when I need you. You're always there when I need you." That phrase had been a blessing then. Now I saw it as a curse because I realized that was exactly what I was to them. Someone who was there when they needed me, not someone who existed for myself, not someone with my own needs, just someone available to solve their problems. And with Robert, it had been the same. I remembered when he was 20 and going through a breakup. He came to my house in the middle of the night, crying. I stayed awake with him all night. I made him tea. I hugged him. I told him everything was going to be okay. He said to me, "I don't know what I would do without you, Mom. You always know how to fix things. You always know how to fix things." Another curse disguised as a compliment, because that's what I did. I fixed things. I solved problems. I was available. And at some point along that road, I stopped being a person and became a tool. I closed the album and put it aside. My hands were shaking, not from cold, but from contained rage. I remembered Mother's Day last year, that day that is supposed to be for honoring mothers, to make them feel special, to thank them for everything they have done. Amanda sent me a text message at 11 o'clock in the morning. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom. We love you very much," with a heart emoji at the end. That was all. A generic message she probably sent from her bed without even thinking about it. Robert called me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Hey, can you watch the kids next weekend? Lucy and I need to go out." Not even on Mother's Day could I just be the mother. I had to continue being the nanny. I told them yes, as always, and I spent that day alone cooking for myself, pretending that I didn't care, but I did care. God, how I cared. I got up from the couch and walked to the window. Outside the street was empty. The neighbors' Christmas lights were still on, blinking in the darkness. Green, red, gold, colors that promised joy, colors that lied. I thought about all the times I had put those same lights on my house, all the times I had decorated the tree alone, all the times I had tried to create a warm and cozy atmosphere for my family. And what had I received in return? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I remembered the year I got sick. It had been 3 years ago, a bad case of pneumonia that kept me in bed for 2 weeks. The doctor told me I needed absolute rest and that someone should take care of me. I called Amanda. "Mom, I can't. The kids have activities and Martin is busy with work, but I can send you soup. Does that work for you?" She never sent the soup. I called Robert. "Mom, this week is complicated. Lucy has an important event and I have meetings, but I'll call you later." Okay, he didn't call. I spent those 2 weeks alone, dragging myself to the kitchen to make myself something to eat, taking medicine with trembling hands, sleeping in sweat and fever with no one to put a cool cloth on my forehead. And when I finally recovered and was available to them again, no one asked how I had been. They only called again when they needed something. Mom, can you watch the kids? Mom, can you lend me money? Mom, I need you to come help me with this. Always needing, never giving. I walked away from the window and went back to the couch. I took out my phone and opened the photo gallery. I started looking through recent photos. Photos that Amanda and Robert posted on their social media. There they were, smiling, happy in fancy restaurants, on beach trips, at parties with friends, living their perfect lives. And in none of those photos was I, because I wasn't part of their perfect lives. I was part of their obligations, their burdens, the things they had to tolerate but not celebrate. I kept looking. I found a photo from 6 months ago. It was Martin's birthday. Amanda had organized a big party. There was food, music, decorations. Everyone looked happy. I was not invited. I found out about the party days later when I saw the photos online. When I asked Amanda why she hadn't invited me, she said, "Oh, Mom, it was an adult party. I thought you'd be bored. Plus, it was last minute." Last minute. It had been planned for weeks, but I wasn't invited because I wasn't part of their social circle. I was just the one who watched their kids when they wanted to go out. The tears started to fall. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of frustration, of years and years of feeling small, invisible, insignificant. I angrily wiped away the tears and took a deep breath. I wasn't going to cry about this anymore. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for my children to finally see me, because now I understood the truth. They were never going to see me, not because I wasn't visible, but because they had chosen not to look. Dawn came slowly that morning. I was still awake on the couch, surrounded by scattered albums and photos. The gray light of day began to filter through the windows, illuminating the mess of memories I had left around me. I got up with an aching body. I hadn't slept at all, but my mind was clearer than ever. It was as if all the fog of years of confusion had finally lifted, and I could see with painful clarity. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. While I waited for the coffee maker to finish, I opened my phone and looked up the grocery store's number. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I knew they opened at 8. I decided to wait. I sat at the table with my steaming cup of coffee in my hands. The warmth of the liquid comforted me, anchoring me to the reality of what I was about to do. It wasn't revenge I felt. It was something deeper. It was the conscious decision to stop sacrificing myself for people who had never appreciated it. It was choosing myself for the first time in decades. At 8 o'clock on the dot, I dialed the grocery store's number. A friendly voice answered on the other end. "Good morning, Central Market. How can I help you?" "Good morning. I need to cancel an order I placed for Christmas. The name is Celia Johnson." There was a pause as the person looked in the system. "Yes, here it is. A large order for 18 people. Turkey, full sides, desserts. The total is $900. Are you sure you want to cancel it? It's almost ready to be delivered on the 23rd. Completely sure. Please, cancel it." Understood. The full refund will be made to your card within 3 to 5 business days. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, that's all. Thank you. I hung up the phone and looked at it. $900 that would come back to me. $900 that I could use for myself, for something I wanted, for something that would make me happy. Next on my list were the gifts. I had bought 8 gifts from different stores over the last 3 months. Some still had receipts, others didn't, but I was going to try to return all of them. I got dressed quickly and left the house. The first store opened at 9 o'clock. I arrived 15 minutes early and waited in the parking lot. When the doors finally opened, I went straight to the returns counter. "Good morning. I need to return this." I placed a large box on the counter with a building set I had bought for Robert's oldest son. It had cost $150. The employee checked the receipt. "It's within the return period. Any problem with the product?" "No, I just changed my mind." Understood. Refund to the card or store credit. Refund to the card? She processed the return and gave me the receipt. $150 back. I went to the second store. I returned a bicycle I had bought for one of Amanda's daughters. $200 more. Third store, a large doll with accessories, $100. Fourth store, clothes for 3 of the grandchildren, $220. Store after store, return after return. Some employees looked at me with curiosity. An older woman returning so many toys before Christmas. They probably thought it was strange, but I didn't care what they thought. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I had recovered $1,100. There were 2 gifts I couldn't return because I had lost the receipts. I left them in a donation box outside a church, Let others enjoy them, children whose parents might actually value their grandmothers. I returned home exhausted, but with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't joy. It wasn't sadness. It was something like relief, like when you finally stop carrying a heavy load you've been holding for too long. I sat in the living room and dialed Paula's number. "Celia, what a surprise. How are you?" "Paula? About that beach trip. How long were you planning to stay?" "Well, I was going to be there until the 27th, but I can stay longer if you want. I was actually thinking of spending New Year's there, too. It's a peaceful place, perfect for resting. Can I go with you? I mean, not just for Christmas. I want to go for longer. A week, maybe 2. There was a pause. Then Paula said in a soft voice, "Celia, are you okay? Can you tell me?" And then it all came out. I told her about the conversation I had heard, about Amanda and Robert planning to leave me with the 8 kids while they went on vacation, about all the years of being invisible, about the forgotten birthdays and the lonely Christmases, about feeling used and discarded. Paula listened in silence. When I finished, her voice was firm and warm. "Celia, listen to me carefully. You're coming with me. We're leaving on the 23rd in the morning, and we're not coming back until you want to. We're going to spend Christmas and New Year's at the beach, eating well, resting without pressure from anyone. And if anyone calls you, you don't answer. Did you hear me? You don't answer. But the children have parents, and those parents can take care of them for once in their lives. You are not responsible for solving the problems they created themselves." She was right. Of course, she was right. But decades of conditioning don't disappear with one conversation. I'm scared, Paula. Scared of what they're going to say, of what they're going to think. And what about what you think? What about what you feel? "Celia, you've spent your whole life worrying about what others feel. It's time for someone to worry about you, and if no one else is going to do it, then you have to do it yourself." We hung up after agreeing on the trip details. Paula would pick me up on the 23rd at 8 o'clock in the morning. We would take only what we needed: comfortable clothes, swimsuits, books, no stress, no obligations. The next few days were strange. Amanda called twice to confirm that everything was ready for Christmas. I responded with evasions. "Yes, Amanda, everything is under control. I wasn't exactly lying. Everything was under control. My control, not hers." Robert sent a message. "Mom, we're dropping the kids off with you on the 24th at 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll be back on the 26th in the evening. Thanks for doing this." I didn't respond. I just left the message on read. On the night of December 22nd, I started packing. I took a small suitcase out of the closet and put it on the bed. I didn't need much: a couple of comfortable pants, light shirts, sandals, my swimsuit that I hadn't used in years. While I was packing, the doorbell rang. It was late, almost 9 at night. I went downstairs feeling a little surprised and opened the door. It was Amanda. She had a bag in her hand and a forced smile on her face. "Hi, Mom. I brought you this." She held out the bag. Inside were packages of cookies and juice boxes for the kids. You know how they like to snack. She didn't invite herself in. She didn't even ask how I was. She just handed me the bag like someone delivering a package. "Amanda," I said in a calm voice, "I need to tell you something." She looked at her watch. "Mom, I'm in a hurry. Martin is waiting for me in the car. It can be quick." I looked at my daughter. I really looked at her. I saw the woman she had become: successful, confident, well-dressed, but I also saw her for what she was. Someone who had learned to use people without even realizing she was doing it. "I'm not going to be here for Christmas." Amanda blinked in confusion. "What do you mean you're not going to be here?" "Mom, we already agreed." "What? You agreed?" "I didn't agree to anything. I heard your conversation last week. I know you plan to leave all 8 kids with me while you and Robert went on vacation." Her face went rigid. "You were listening to my private conversations. I was in my own house. You were the one talking out loud without caring if I heard or not." "Mom, it's not a big deal. It's just a few days. The kids adore you." "It's not a big deal," I repeated slowly. "It's not a big deal that you use me as a free nanny. It's not a big deal that you assume I don't have a life of my own. It's not a big deal that you never ask me what I want. What are you talking about? We've always included you." "Included? Amanda, I wasn't invited to Martin's birthday. I wasn't invited to your anniversary last year. The only time you include me is when you need something from me. You're exaggerating." "No, I'm seeing clearly for the first time in years." Amanda sighed with impatience. "Fine. So what do you want? Do you want us to pay you? Is that it?" Her words hit me like a slap. Pay me? As if that was the missing piece. As if the problem was money and not the absolute lack of respect and love. I don't want your money, Amanda. I want you to see me. I want you to value me. But I realize that's never going to happen. So I've decided to do something different this year. What? I'm going on a trip. I'm leaving tomorrow morning and not coming back until after New Year's. The silence that followed my words was so dense I could feel it. Amanda looked at me as if I had just spoken a foreign language. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she finally found her voice. You're going on a trip. Mom, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. But everything's already planned. The kids are expecting to come here. We already told them they'd be spending Christmas with Grandma. Then you'll have to change your plans just like I changed mine. Amanda took a step back as if my words were physically threatening. You can't do this to us. It's Christmas. It's family time. It's family time, I repeated with a calmness that surprised me. But I don't count as family, do I? I only count as the one who solves everyone's problems. You're being ridiculous. Of course you're family. When was the last time you invited me to do something that didn't involve watching your kids? She opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. I saw her search her memory, trying to find a single example. She didn't find one. Exactly, I said. You can't remember because it hasn't happened. I only exist for you when you need me. Mom, you're misinterpreting everything. We've been busy. It's true, but that doesn't mean we don't love you. Love without action is just empty words, Amanda. Her face began to redden. I recognized that expression. It was the same one she used to get when she was a little girl and didn't get her way. And what are we supposed to do with the kids? Robert and I already paid for the hotels. We already made the reservations. We can't just cancel everything like this. That's not my problem. It's not your problem. They're your grandchildren. Yes, they're my grandchildren, but they are your children. Your responsibility, not mine. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. I don't recognize you. This isn't you. You're right. This isn't the woman you've known your whole life. That woman let herself be walked all over. This new version that has decided that enough is enough. And you're going to do this? You're going to ruin your grandchildren's Christmas just to make a point. Her words were designed to make me feel guilty, and they worked for a moment. I felt the familiar pang in my chest, the urge to back down, to say I was exaggerating, to return to my usual role. But then I remembered the conversation I had heard. Just leave all 8 grandkids with her to watch, and that's it. I remembered all the forgotten birthdays, all the lonely nights, all the moments when I had been invisible to my own family. I'm not ruining anything, I said in a firm voice. You ruined the respect you should have had for me years ago. I'm just picking up what's left of my dignity. This is pure selfishness. Dad would be disappointed in you. That was the last straw, mentioning my dead husband, using him as a weapon against me. Don't you dare, I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. Don't you dare talk about your father. He never treated me the way you do. He valued me. He saw me. He truly loved me. And we love you too. No, you use me. There's a difference. Amanda took her phone out of her pocket. I'm calling Robert. He's going to talk to you. This is crazy. Call him if you want. My decision isn't going to change. She dialed while glaring at me. She waited for Robert to answer. Robert, you're on speakerphone. I'm with Mom and she just told me she's not going to be here for Christmas, that she's going on a trip. Tell her this is absurd. I heard Robert's voice on the other end. What? Mom, is that true? Yes, Robert, it's true. But why did something happen? Many things happened for many years, and I finally decided that I deserve better than to be treated like your employee. No one treats you like an employee. You're our mother. When was my last birthday, Robert? Silence. I'll tell you, it was August 15th, 4 months ago. You didn't call. You didn't write. You didn't come. Nothing. Mom, I was busy with... You're always busy. Everyone is always busy, except when you need me for something. Then you find the time. This isn't fair, Amanda chimed in. You're punishing us for something we didn't even know bothered you. It bothered me because you never stopped to ask me. You never cared how I felt. You only cared about what I could do for you. Robert spoke again. Mom, we can talk about this after Christmas, but right now we need you to be available. I finished for him. That's the word you're looking for. You need me to be available. Well, guess what? I'm not anymore. Then what are we going to do? Robert's voice sounded more irritated than worried. You're going to do what all parents do. Take care of your own children, cancel your trips, or take the kids with you or hire someone. I don't know. It's not my problem to solve. Amanda closed her eyes as if she were making an effort to stay calm. Mom, be reasonable. We've already paid thousands of dollars for these trips. We can't just... I paid $900 for the dinner you were going to eat. $1,200 for gifts you were going to open. That money matters too. Or at least it should. Wait, Robert said. You canceled the dinner and the gifts. I returned them, every one of them, and I got my money back. The silence on the other end of the phone was absolute. I could imagine Robert's face processing this information. I can't believe you did that, Amanda finally said. The kids are going to be devastated. The kids are going to be fine. They're resilient. What won't be fine is if they keep growing up thinking that grandmas only exist to serve them. Amanda put her phone away. Her eyes were shining, but I don't know if it was from tears or rage. Fine, go, take your trip, but don't expect things to go back to the way they were when you get back. I don't want things to go back to the way they were. That's exactly the point. She turned around and started walking to her car. Then she stopped and looked at me over her shoulder. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not having done it sooner. I watched her get into the car where Martin was waiting. Even from a distance, I could see her tense body language as she told him what had happened. The car started quickly and disappeared into the darkness of the street. I closed the door and leaned against it. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating fast. But I didn't feel bad. I felt liberated. I went up to my room and continued packing. I folded each item of clothing carefully, thinking about the beach, about the sun, about conversations without pressure. I packed my swimsuit, the one I had bought 3 years ago and had never used because there was never any time for me. I put my favorite book in the suitcase, a book I had tried to read 5 times but was always interrupted. This time, I would finish it. I added a new notebook. Maybe I would write, maybe I would draw, maybe I would just use it to make lists of things that made me happy, things I had forgotten I liked. My phone started ringing. It was Robert. I didn't answer. He called 3 more times. Then Amanda, then Martin, then Lucy. They all wanted to convince me. They all wanted me to go back to my place, to the place where I was useful but invisible. I turned off the phone. The silence that followed was beautiful. I sat on the bed and looked at the half-full suitcase. It was small. I didn't need much. I just needed space to breathe. December 23rd dawned with a clear sky. I woke up early before the sun came out with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was anticipation, something I hadn't felt in years. I took a long shower, letting the hot water relax my tense muscles. I dressed in comfortable clothes, some cotton pants and a light shirt. Nothing fancy, nothing that needed to be ironed or coordinated, just clothes that made me feel free. I went down to the kitchen and made coffee. While I drank it, I looked around the house. Everything was clean, tidy, empty. There were no Christmas decorations this year. There was no tree, no lights. It was just a house. And for the first time in a long time, that seemed enough to me. At 8 o'clock on the dot, the doorbell rang. Paula had arrived. I opened the door and there she was, smiling with sunglasses on her head and a contagious energy. Ready for the adventure? More than ready. I put my suitcase in the trunk of her car. It was an old but reliable car, perfect for a long trip. Paula had prepared a cooler with water, sodas, and snacks for the road. When I got in the car and closed the door, I felt something I hadn't expected, absolute relief, as if I had just let go of a weight I had been carrying for decades. Everything okay? Paula asked as she started the car. Everything's perfect. We left the city behind. The streets became less congested, the buildings smaller, until finally there was only the open road in front of us. Paula put on some soft music, nothing Christmassy, just calm melodies that filled the silence without demanding attention. For the first hour, we didn't talk much. I looked out the window, watching the landscape go by. Open fields, trees, small towns that appeared and disappeared. I felt as if I were waking up from a long, confusing dream. Did they call? Paula asked eventually. Many times I turned off the phone. Well done, Paula. Do you think I'm a bad person? She looked at me out of the corner of her eye. Why would you ask that? Because I left my grandchildren without Christmas. Because I canceled everything. Because I left. Paula sighed. Celia, tell me something. If a friend of yours told you this story, if she told you that her children use her, that they never appreciate her, that they only look for her when they need something, what would you tell her? I thought about it for a moment. I would tell her she deserves better. Exactly. Then why don't you deserve the same? I didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe I did, but I had never allowed myself to say it out loud. I had spent so many years believing that my value was in what I could give, in what I could do for others, that I had forgotten that I also had the right to receive. We kept driving. We stopped once to get gas and stretch our legs. Paula bought coffee and sweet bread. We sat on a bench outside the gas station, eating in comfortable silence. The town we're going to is small, Paula said. There's not much to do, but that's the point. It's peaceful. The people are friendly, there's a beautiful beach, and the house I rented has a terrace where you can watch the sunset. Sounds perfect. There's no internet in the house. Well, there is, but it's terrible. So you're basically going to be disconnected. Even better. We arrived at the town around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was exactly as Paula had described it, small, picturesque, with pastel-colored houses and cobblestone streets. The sea breeze reached us, bringing the smell of salt and freedom. The house Paula had rented was modest but cozy. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living room with large windows overlooking the beach. Everything was simple, clean, peaceful. "This is your room," Paula said, opening a door. It was a small room with a bed covered in white sheets, a nightstand, and a window with a view of the sea. I dropped my suitcase on the floor and walked to the window. The ocean stretched out infinitely in front of me, sparkling in the afternoon sun. The waves broke softly on the shore. Some seagulls flew in circles. I just stood there watching, and something inside me began to loosen, something that had been tight for years. "I'm going to make something to eat," Paula said from the doorway. "Rest for a bit if you want." I sat on the bed and took a deep breath. The air here tasted different, cleaner, freer. I turned on my phone for just a moment to see if there was a real emergency. 53 missed calls, 27 text messages, all from Amanda, Robert, Martin, Lucy. The messages started with confusion, then moved to anger, then to attempts at manipulation. "Amanda, Mom, the kids are crying. This is what you wanted." "Robert, I called the grocery store. They confirmed you canceled everything. This is a level of selfishness I never imagined from you." "Martin, Celia, Amanda is very upset. This isn't good for her health. You need to come back." "Lucy, I don't understand what we did wrong. We have always treated you with respect." I read each message without feeling what I expected to feel. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel an urgency to respond. I just felt a clear distance between them and me. I turned off the phone again and put it at the bottom of my suitcase. Paula called me from the kitchen. "Food is ready." I left the room and found a simple table but full of good things. Fresh salad, grilled fish, rice, fruits. Simple food that tasted like care. We ate slowly without rushing, talking about unimportant things, the weather, the colors of the sunset, the plans for the next few days. "Tomorrow is Christmas Eve," Paula said. "I thought we could walk on the beach in the morning. There's a small market downtown where they sell crafts, and at night, if you want, we can have a simple dinner here or go to the town restaurant. Whatever you prefer is fine with me. Celia, this trip is for you. What do you want?" The question caught me by surprise. What did I want? It had been so long since anyone had asked me that. "I want to walk on the beach," I said slowly. "I want to see the market. And at night, I want a quiet dinner here without any stress." Paula smiled. "Then that's what we'll do." That afternoon, we walked on the beach. The sun was starting to set and everything was painted gold. I let the water touch my feet. It was cold but refreshing. Paula walked beside me, picking up shells from time to time. There were other people on the beach, families with kids building sand castles, couples walking hand in hand, groups of friends laughing. Everyone seemed at peace. No one seemed to be carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. "You know what hurts the most?" I said suddenly. "What?" "That they didn't even notice I was disappearing. They didn't even notice I was there. Only when they needed me. I was invisible for years, and they never cared." Paula stopped and took my arm. "Celia, look at me. You're not invisible. They chose not to see you. There's a huge difference. And the fact that they couldn't see your worth doesn't mean you don't have it." Her words hit me hard. I felt the tears coming, but this time I didn't stop them. I let them fall freely while the sound of the waves accompanied them. Paula hugged me. She didn't say anything else. She just held me while I cried out years of accumulated pain. When I finally pulled away, I wiped my tears and looked at the horizon. The sun was touching the water now, creating a path of light on the waves. "Thank you," I said to Paula. "What for?" "For seeing me. For being here. for not judging me. That's what real friends do. We returned to the house when it was already getting dark. Paula made tea and we sat on the terrace wrapped in light blankets listening to the constant sound of the sea. We didn't talk much. There was no need. The company was enough. That night I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. There were no nightmares, no anxiety, just a deep and restorative rest. Christmas Eve dawned bright and warm. I woke up to the sound of seagulls and the smell of fresh coffee coming from the kitchen. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came back to me. I was far away. I was free. I was choosing myself for the first time in decades. I got up slowly, without rushing. Paula was already in the kitchen making breakfast. Toast, fresh fruit, orange juice. Good morning. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years. We ate breakfast on the terrace, looking at the sea. The water was calm this morning, almost like a mirror reflecting the sky. Some people were already walking on the beach, taking advantage of the cool hours before the sun got stronger. Ready for the market? Paula asked. Ready? We walked to the center of town. The streets were livelier than the day before. Christmas music played from the stores, but it wasn't the loud commercial music of the city. It was soft, almost comforting. The market was small but charming. There were stalls with local crafts, handmade jewelry, black and white photographs from local artists. Everything had a personal touch, as if each piece carried the story of the person who had created it. I stopped at a stall that sold woven bracelets. They were simple but beautiful, each in different colors. The woman who was selling them was older, probably my age. She had wrinkled but strong hands, hands that had worked a lifetime. They're beautiful, I told her. Thank you. I make them myself. Each one is unique. How much is this one? I pointed to one in shades of green and white. $15. I took the money from my purse and bought it. I put it on my wrist and I liked how it felt. Light, simple, mine. Paula bought some earrings. We kept walking, stopping at different stalls without pressure, without a schedule. It was the first time in years I had been able to do something like this. Just walk, just look, just exist without anyone needing anything from me. At one of the stalls, there were handmade notebooks. I remembered the notebook I had brought in my suitcase. I thought about all the things I wanted to write, all the things I had kept silent about for so long. I bought a small notebook with a fabric cover. It cost $12. I would have it as a backup for when the other one was filled with words that needed to come out. Around noon, we returned to the house. It was hot now, and we decided to spend the afternoon at the beach. Paula brought umbrellas and towels. I put on my swimsuit for the first time in 3 years. I looked at myself in the mirror before I left. My body had aged. There were wrinkles, stretch marks, marks of time. But there was also the body that had carried 2 children. The body that had worked tirelessly. The body that had sustained me through everything. At another time, I would have criticized myself. I would have thought about everything that was wrong. But today, I only felt gratitude. This body had brought me here to this moment of freedom. We spent the afternoon under the umbrella. Paula was reading a book. I just looked at the sea, feeling the sun on my skin, listening to the waves. There was peace here, a peace I didn't know could exist. At some point in the afternoon, I turned on my phone briefly. More messages, more calls. Now, there were also messages from numbers I didn't recognize, probably friends of Amanda and Robert recruited to make me feel guilty. One message in particular caught my attention. It was from Amanda. We had to cancel everything. The hotels didn't give us our money back. Robert is furious. The kids won't stop asking for you. I hope you're happy. I read the message twice. I expected to feel something. Guilt, maybe remorse, but all I felt was a cold clarity. This wasn't my responsibility. It never should have been. I replied for the first time. I'm sorry you had to change your plans. The kids have parents. It's time for you to act like them. I sent the message and turned off the phone again. Paula looked at me. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. That night, instead of an elaborate dinner, we made something simple. Pasta with fresh vegetables, salad, a glass of wine. We ate on the terrace while the sun set on the horizon. Happy Christmas Eve, Paula said, raising her glass. Happy Christmas Eve, I replied. We toasted, and the sound of the glasses clinking was soft and clear. There were no fireworks. There were no expensive gifts, no stress. Just 2 friends sharing a quiet dinner by the sea. You know what the strangest thing is? I said after a while. What? That I don't miss anything I left behind. I thought I would feel bad. I thought I would miss the kids, the traditions, all that Christmas craziness. But no, I just feel relief. That's because you're finally where you should be with yourself. That night, I slept soundly again. I dreamed of the sea, of walking on the beach aimlessly, of having time for everything and a hurry for nothing. Christmas Day dawned just as beautiful. Paula and I had a late breakfast with no alarms, no obligations. Then we went for a walk on a trail that bordered the coast. The landscape was breathtaking. Rocks, wild vegetation, the sea stretching out infinitely. In the afternoon, we decided to go to the town's restaurant. It was a small, family-run place. There were other people there also spending a peaceful Christmas, an older couple, a group of friends. Everyone seemed happy, relaxed. We ordered fresh fish and a bottle of white wine. The food was delicious, prepared with care and affection. It wasn't an elaborate 15-course dinner. It was simple, but it had something that the dinners I used to prepare never had. I could enjoy it without worrying about serving others. While we ate, my phone started vibrating in my purse. I ignored it. It kept vibrating. Paula looked at me. "Are you going to answer?" "No." But the vibration continued, insistent, annoying. Finally, I took out the phone. It was Amanda calling over and over. I sighed and answered, "Yes, Mom." Her voice sounded different, controlled, but tense. "We need to talk." "I'm busy." "You're busy?" she repeated in a tone I couldn't decipher. "It's Christmas Day and you're busy." "That's right. Robert and I are coming to your house tomorrow. We need to sort this out." "There's nothing to sort out, Amanda. I've already made my decision. You can't just leave and pretend you don't have responsibilities. My only responsibilities are to myself." "You're adults. You have to learn to manage your own lives. What about the kids? What did they do wrong?" "The kids didn't do anything wrong, but it's not my job to raise them either. I already raised my children. Now it's your turn. I don't recognize you." "Good, because the woman you knew no longer exists." She got tired of being invisible. There was a long pause. Then Amanda spoke in a lower, almost threatening voice. "Fine, if this is what you want, perfect. But don't expect us to look for you when you get back. Don't expect us to include you in anything. You made your decision. Now live with the consequences." "I'll live with them perfectly well." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were trembling slightly, but not from fear, from something like liberation. Paula looked at me from across the table. "How do you feel?" "Free." That night, back at the house, I sat on the terrace with the notebook I had bought. I opened the first page and began to write. Today is Christmas, and I'm where I want to be. For the first time in my life, I chose my own peace over the expectations of others, and I don't regret it. I kept writing, about the years of silence, about the moments of invisibility, about learning that saying no is not selfishness, but self-love. I wrote until my hand hurt, and when I finally closed the notebook, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The following days passed in a calm I didn't know. Paula and I woke up late, had breakfast on the terrace, walked on the beach, read, talked. There were no schedules, no pressures, just time that moved slow and soft like the waves. On the afternoon of December 28th, I was reading in the living room when I heard my phone ring. I had left it on, but on silent. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it out of curiosity. "Celia, it's Lena Brown, your neighbor. Amanda and Robert are here. They've been knocking on the door for the last hour. I thought you should know." I read the message twice. So they had followed through on their threat. They had come to look for me. I imagined the scene. Amanda furiously knocking on the door, Robert pacing impatiently, both expecting me to show up, to apologize, to return to my place. I replied to Lena, "Thanks for the heads up. I'm not in town. I won't be back until after New Year's. If they come back, please, don't give them any information about me." Lena responded quickly. "Understood. Take care." I put the phone aside and went back to my book, but I couldn't concentrate. I knew this wasn't over. I knew I would eventually have to face them face to face. That night, while we were having dinner, I told Paula what had happened. "And what are you going to do when you get back?" she asked. "I don't know yet, but I know I'm not going back to who I was before. And what if they don't accept that? Then they don't accept it. I can't control how they react. I can only control how I react." Paula nodded. "You're going to be okay, Celia. You're stronger than you think." On December 29th, we decided to do something different. Paula had heard about a small art gallery in the neighboring town. We took the car and went to explore. The gallery was small but filled with beautiful works, paintings of local landscapes, wood sculptures, black and white photographs, all created by artists from the region. There was one painting in particular that caught my eye. It was of an older woman sitting on a wooden chair looking out at the sea. Her posture was peaceful, almost meditative. There was something about that image that resonated deeply with me. "It's beautiful," I said to the gallery owner. "A local artist painted it," he explained. "She says it represents the peace that comes after the storm." "How much does it cost?" $250. It was more than I had planned to spend. But something in that painting spoke to me. It was like seeing my own transformation reflected in oil. "I'll take it." On the way back to the house, we hung the painting in the living room. Paula took a step back to admire it. "It's perfect for you." "Yeah," I said. "I think so too." That night, I wrote more in my notebook about the fear I had felt at the beginning, about the guilt I expected to feel, but which never came, about discovering that chosen solitude was different from imposed loneliness. On December 30th, while we were walking on the beach, my phone rang. This time it was a number I did recognize. It was Martin, Amanda's husband. I hesitated before answering, then I decided it was time to face this directly. "Yes, Celia, I need to talk to you." His voice was serious, almost formal. "I'm listening. Amanda is devastated. You don't understand the damage you've caused. On the contrary, I understand perfectly the damage I have allowed them to cause me for years. This isn't about you. This is about family." "Family." "Martin, how many times have you invited me to something that didn't involve watching your kids? How many times have you asked me how I'm doing? How many times have you treated me as something more than a convenient nanny?" Silence on the other end. "Exactly. Never. Because for you, for Amanda, for Robert, I only exist when I'm useful. Well, guess what? I don't accept that anymore. You're the grandma. You're supposed to be there for the kids. I am a person before I am a grandmother, and that person deserves respect. Amanda says she doesn't want to see you again. That's her decision. I'll be here when she's ready to treat me with dignity, but not before. You're incredibly selfish, and you're incredibly blind, but it's no longer my job to make you see." I hung up. This time my hands weren't shaking. This time I only felt a deep calm. Paula had heard the conversation. She didn't say anything. She just hugged me. On December 30th first, we decided to have a small celebration. We bought fresh seafood at the market and cooked it ourselves. It wasn't an elaborate dinner, but it was special. We set the table with candles and wild flowers we had collected on our walks. At 11 o'clock at night, we went up to the terrace with glasses of sparkling cider. From there, we could see some fireworks in the distance, small points of light in the dark sky. "To new beginnings," Paula said, raising her glass. "To choosing myself," I replied. We toasted as the midnight bells began to chime from the town church. January 1st dawned peacefully. Paula and I spent the day not doing much, just existing. In the afternoon, I received another message. This time, it was from Robert. "Mom, this has gone too far. You need to come back and fix this. Amanda won't stop crying. The kids are asking for you. Dad wouldn't have wanted this." I read the message several times. The attempt to use my dead husband as an emotional weapon no longer worked. He had been a good man. He had valued me, and if he were alive, he would have understood why I did what I did. I replied, "Robert, your father taught me that true love isn't manipulation. He taught me that relationships are built on mutual respect. If Amanda is crying, maybe it's time for you to reflect on why. If the kids are asking for me, tell them their grandma loves them, but she also loves herself. I'll be back in 2 days. When I do, things are going to be different. Either you accept the new Celia or we have nothing more to talk about." I sent the message and turned off the phone. On January 2nd, Paula and I packed our things. The trip back was peaceful. I looked out the window, processing everything I had experienced in those days. I wasn't a different person. I was the same person I had always been, but finally free of the chains I had allowed to be put on me. When we arrived at my house, Paula helped me get my suitcase out. "Are you going to be okay?" she asked. "I'm going to be perfect." We hugged. "Thanks for everything, Paula. For seeing me, for being there. When you want to repeat the trip, just let me know." I watched her drive away in her car. Then I went into my house. It was exactly as I had left it. Clean, tidy, empty. But now that emptiness didn't scare me. It was space. Space to build something new. I hung the painting I had bought on the living room wall. The woman looking out at the sea was now looking at me, reminding me who I was now. That night, as I was making tea, the doorbell rang. I looked out the window. It was Amanda and Robert together with serious faces. I took a deep breath. It was time for the final conversation. I opened the door, but I didn't invite them in. "We need to talk," Amanda said. "Then talk." Amanda and Robert stood in the doorway, looking at me as if they didn't recognize me. Maybe they didn't recognize me. The woman they had known their whole lives would have opened the door wide, invited them in, made coffee, would have done everything possible to smooth over the tension. But that woman no longer existed. "You're not going to let us in?" Robert asked in a tone that was meant to be authoritative, but sounded more like confusion. "It depends on what you've come to say." Amanda crossed her arms. Her face was tense, with dark circles that revealed sleepless nights. But I didn't feel the need to fix that. It wasn't my job to fix the consequences of their own decisions. "We came to talk about what happened," Amanda said, "about how you ruined the whole family's Christmas. I didn't ruin anything. You created an unsustainable situation, and I simply refused to be a part of it." "You left us hanging," Robert interjected. "We lost thousands of dollars on reservations we couldn't cancel. We had to spend Christmas with 8 screaming kids asking for you, and I spent Christmas in peace for the first time in years. It was a choice. Mine." Amanda took a step forward. "Do you know how hard it was to explain to the kids why their grandma abandoned them?" "I didn't abandon anyone. I refused to be used." "There's a difference." "This is ridiculous," Robert said. "You're our mother. You're supposed to be there for us. I was your mother for my whole life. I raised you. I cared for you. I sacrificed everything for you. But you're not children anymore. You're adults with your own families, and I'm no longer obligated to solve all your problems." "Then what?" Amanda looked at me with shining eyes. "Are we not your family anymore? Do we not matter? You stopped treating me like family a long time ago. You turned me into a service, into something useful, but not valuable." "That's not true." "No." I held her gaze. "When was my last birthday, Amanda?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "August 15th, almost 5 months ago. You didn't call. You didn't come. You didn't even send a message until 3 days later. And you, Robert, not even that." Robert looked away. "We've been busy." "You're always busy except when you need me for something." "This is an exaggeration," Amanda said. "Yes, we've been busy, but we've always loved you. Love without actions is just noise. You loved me when it was convenient. You looked for me when you needed something. But when I needed something, when I was sick, when I was alone, you were never there." Amanda wiped away the tears that were starting to fall. But this time, I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. These were tears she needed to cry. "So what now?" Robert asked. "You're just cutting us out of your life." "I'm not cutting you out. I'm setting boundaries. I'm no longer going to be available every time you need me. I'm no longer going to pay for things you should be paying for. I'm no longer going to watch your children every time you want to get away. I have my own life, and it's time for me to live it." "But you're the grandma," Amanda insisted. "Yes, I'm the grandma, and I love my grandchildren, but loving them doesn't mean sacrificing my dignity. If you want me to be a part of your lives, it's going to be on my terms, with respect, with consideration, with reciprocity." "This is selfishness," Robert said. "Call it whatever you want. I call it self-love." There was a long silence. Amanda and Robert looked at each other, communicating in that silent language that only siblings share. Finally, Amanda spoke. "And what if we can't accept that?" "Then we have nothing more to talk about. The door is open when you're ready to see me as a person, not as a resource. But I'm not going to beg for your respect, not anymore." Amanda turned around and started walking to the car. Robert stayed for a moment longer, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. There was something there, maybe confusion, maybe the first glimmer of understanding. "I never thought you'd do something like this," he finally said. "Me neither, but it turns out I have more strength than you both thought." He nodded slowly and followed his sister. I watched them get in the car and drive away. I didn't feel sadness, I didn't feel relief, I just felt calm. I closed the door and leaned against it. My legs were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally having said everything I needed to say. The following days passed in a strange quietness. My phone didn't ring. There were no messages. There were no attempts at contact. It was as if my children had decided to follow through on their threat to disappear from my life. And curiously, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. I started building a new routine. I got up when my body wanted to wake up, not when an alarm forced me to. I had breakfast slowly, savoring every bite. I read the books I had bought years ago, but had never had time to open. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. I met other women my age, women with their own stories, their own battles, their own victories. We formed a small group. We would get together on Thursdays to paint and talk. One of them, Sonia Davis, told me her own story, how her children had also used her for years, how she had finally said enough is enough, and how after a difficult year, her children had returned with a different attitude. Not everyone comes back, she warned me. Some never understand. But even if they don't come back, you'll be okay because you finally have yourself. She was right. A month passed, then two. March arrived with its warmer days and longer nights. I was still living my new life, calm, autonomous, at peace. One Tuesday afternoon, I was in my garden planting flowers when I heard the gate open. I looked up and saw Robert standing there alone with his hands in his pockets. "Hi, Mom." I took off my gardening gloves and stood up. "Robert, can I come in?" I thought about it for a moment, then I nodded. "You can come in." We went into the house. I served him some water. We sat in the living room with the painting of the woman looking at the sea watching us from the wall. "Nice painting," he said. "I bought it on my trip." There was an awkward silence. Finally, Robert spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how we treated you, and you're right." His voice cracked slightly. "You're right about everything. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Lucy and I have been talking about how we depended on you for everything, about how we never asked you how you were doing, about how we turned you into an employee instead of treating you like our mother." He wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom, I really am." The words I had waited for years had finally come, but I no longer needed them in the same way. They no longer defined my worth. "Thank you for saying that," I replied calmly. "Do you think we can start over, differently, with respect?" "That depends on you." "I've already made my boundaries clear. If you're willing to respect them, we can try." He nodded. "We're going to respect them, I promise you." I don't know if Amanda would eventually come too. I didn't know if things would ever be completely normal again, but I had learned something crucial. My peace didn't depend on them changing. It depended on me standing firm in my own value. Robert left after an hour. It was a small, cautious conversation, but it was a start. That night, I sat on my terrace with a cup of tea and my notebook. I looked at the stars and thought about the whole journey from that painful conversation I heard while hidden to this moment of calm. I opened the notebook and wrote, "Today, I learned that letting go is not abandoning, it's freeing yourself. I learned that true love doesn't demand sacrifice but mutual respect. I learned that it's never too late to choose yourself. I'm 67 years old, and I finally discovered that the most important woman in my life is me." I closed the notebook and looked up at the sky. I didn't know what would come next. Maybe Amanda would come back. Maybe not. Maybe my grandchildren would grow up understanding that their grandma was brave. Or maybe they would never understand. But it didn't matter anymore. Because for the first time in decades, I was whole. Not because someone else made me whole, but because I had finally found myself. And that was enough.